Hello everyone and welcome to VmVideocon Channel. I am with you Dharmendra Singh and I would like to welcome you all to this fascinating session of learning of special live telecast under the theme of intervention in inclusive classroom, ask the expert. Right, and today we are going to talk about, let me introduce the topic to you all, behavior and daily skill, children with autism in class 1 and 2. So basically this session is going to be dedicated to the class 1 or 2 students and of course related to their teachers and all. Right, if you have any questions, any query related to this, you can get back to us on our toll-free number. You can write it down, flashing on your television screen as well, 8800440559. Apart of this, if you would like to ask your questions through email, if you would like to send your suggestions through mail as well, you can do this on dts.class1@ciat.nic.in, and of course for class 2, dts.class2@ciat.nic.in. Right, and a part of this, if you would like to catch this session live, then you can watch this on VmVideo channel and of course on NCERT official, which is going to be telecast in all around the globe. And definitely, if you will follow, you will definitely be enlightened one and all around this globe. Now, let me introduce a couple of experts today. As you can see in the studio, I've got Mr. Atul Kumar, sign language interpreter. I welcome you, Mr. Atul. Right, and on the other hand, virtually we have got Dr. Mrs. Sudhanshu Grover, Head of Educational Services, AFA. I welcome you, Dr. Grover.
Namaste.
Right, so we all would like to know from you that how we are going to deal with behavior and daily skills. So overall, we would like to know, a small view from you, then we can move further in this session. So all time is yours now, you can start with.
Thank you, Dharmendra ji. Before we start talking about what to do with a autistic child in the classroom, let's talk a little bit about autism. So as you can see in the next slide, autism is a neurological condition that affects 2% of the human population. Now we know that neurology means related to the brain, right? And the brain of an autistic person, when it was compared to non-autistic children or non-autistic people, it was seen that the structure of the brain is different and also the functioning of the brain is different. Now we know that the brain is a very vital organ, it's a very important organ, and the brain, it's because of the brain that we are able to process the information. We receive the information from the environment and we are able to process that information, and then we are able to act on that information. It's because of the brain we are able to think, we are able to move, we are able to communicate, we are able to socialize. But what happens in autism is when the functioning of the brain is different, the way the different parts of the brain communicate with each other, when it is different, then all the functions of the brain are going to be different. So an autistic person may process his senses differently, he may think differently, he may move differently, he may communicate differently, he may socialize differently. The way he remembers things, his memory may be different, and he may have a different way of communicating with the people around him and the environment around him. So as you can see in the next slide, when the MRI scan of an autistic person's brain was taken and compared to a non-autistic person's brain, it was seen that autistic brains are 40% more active. Means बहुत कुछ हो रहा है एक autistic person के brain. And what is concluded is that a lot of information is received by the brain. The way the information is processed is different, and hence the response of the autistic person to the environment is different, right? Now the thing is that all autistic children can learn. They can go very well in a mainstream classroom. And usually what is thought is when a child comes to a mainstream classroom, the onus is on the teacher for her to be creative, for her to be innovative, and then they think that the child is able to settle in. But there are some simple practical strategies that can be implemented. If the classroom is set up to accommodate the needs of an autistic child, then the autistic child can perform academically as well as socially. So let's first talk about, if you go to the next slide, we can talk about the next after this. Let's talk about the learning environment. because learning environment is as important as the learning itself, right? Because the learning environment sets the stage for the learning to happen and for the learning to be successful. So let's quickly talk about what are the changes that you can bring in the classroom so that the child who's autistic is able to settle well. Now, given that, like I had said earlier, that 2% of the population is autistic, so in every 50 children, there is one child who's going to be autistic. And given our class sizes, it is absolutely possible that every teacher will have at least one child, if not more, in her class who's going to be autistic. So it's important to understand what can the teacher do. So the layout of the class, rather than having children arranged in a circular table all around the circular table, children can be made to sit in rows. When children are sitting in rows, then the child will be able to get his space that he may require. Also, he's facing forward, so he will be able to attend to the teacher, right? If the child is going to be placed on a mat, then you would want the child to know where he is going to be sitting. Now, that may be difficult for an autistic child. So maybe you can put a cross mark on the mat so he will know that this is the place I'm going to sit. In the same way, in the classrooms, there is a lot of shifting of students that happens. The seating arrangement changes. Now, for a child, if the place is going to be changed, he wouldn't know where to sit. So maybe you have his name labeled on a chair. So wherever the chair is kept, he will know that this is the place I'm going to sit, right? Now, these strategies that I'm talking about don't just work with autistic children, they work across children. They work with disabled children, non-disabled children, any kind of neurotype. If the child knows where he has to sit when he comes to the class, then it just gives him more predictability. So you could label the chair on which the child is going to be sitting. You could also have him sit away from the doors and windows. Now, we know that children have very short attention spans, and for an autistic child, the attention span is even shorter because of the information that he's receiving. Remember, I talked about how the brain is 40% more active. So there is a lot already that's happening in his brain. So if possible, have him sit away from the windows and doors. Think of providing him an alternate seating arrangement. So rather than sitting on a table or chair, he's sitting on a rocking chair. So, when his sensory needs are going to be taken care of, when he's rocking on the chair, his sensory needs are taken care of, and then he will be able to attend to the teacher better. So think of alternate arrangements. Maybe a bean bag could be provided for the child to sit. Maybe a stool could be provided for a child to sit. Also, like I had mentioned earlier, children with autism, they are receiving a lot of information, right? The sensory information that they receive, it can be magnified. That is why you would want to eliminate as much as possible the other sensory information in the class. So usually in the classroom, they put up those things, the artworks of children that could be put on the wall that's behind the child, so he doesn't get distracted by it. Also, the lights can, rather than getting direct light, the light can be projected from the top. A child could be provided with a visor so that that light does not bother him. If he gets bothered by loud sounds, he could be provided with earphones or headphones so that that sound doesn't bother him. You could also have different areas in the classroom. Like I said, it will help all children. So if the same table is going to be used for art, and it's the same table that's used for lunch, then just placing a table mat when it's lunchtime will help the child understand that this is lunchtime. When I come on this table, a table mat is spread, it means I'm going to eat. When the table mat is not there, and instead there are paints and brushes, it means it's art time, right? There could be a basket that's kept in which the children can put their homework. So he knows that this is the place I put my homework. This is the place I keep my bottle. This is the place I keep my bag. And all of this will give him a lot of predictability and it'll calm him down. Also providing calming zone in the classroom where the child can and relax himself, reset himself, regulate his emotions. Sometimes autistic children get overwhelmed by the information that they are receiving and don't know how to regulate. So there could be a place in the where he goes and regulates. The teacher teaches him how to regulate. And when he is ready, he joins back the classroom. The second thing that we are going to be talking about, as you can see in the next slide, is providing a predictable routine. Autistic children thrive on predictability, right? So try and give him a visual timetable. So every classroom has a timetable, but rather than having it on the board, give him an individualized timetable which is there on his table so that he can refer to it. Children with autism may not ask as many questions as a non-autistic child may ask, right? So he may not ask what is going to happen, when will this get over, where do I have to go and do this activity. All these questions other children will ask, but autistic child may not ask. So when you have a visual timetable that is on his table, he will know what is the sequence of activities, where he is going to be doing it, what he has to do, what will he do after this is finished. All these questions will be answered if the timetable is in front of him and it is at the level at which his understanding is. So if he is at a concrete level, you would want to have object cues. If he is at a picture level, you could have pictures. So a paintbrush telling him it's paint time, a notebook indicating that it's time for you to take out your notebook. So that way, if you have a visual timetable, it will help. Also, if there are going to be unexpected changes that are going to be happening, you want to prepare the child in advance. You want to tell the child that, a guest person is going to come or a proxy teacher is going to come. This will help the child really relax. The other is that autistic children find it difficult to transition. They find it difficult to move across environments. So the teacher can put a timer to tell the child that these many minutes are left for this activity to get over. After that, the next activity will begin. Also, what the teacher can do is give a verbal reminder. So we have 5 more minutes of this. After this activity will get over. The next thing that you could do, as you can see in the next slide, is giving clear expectations. Now, for a child who is autistic, usually the learning is not difficult. What is difficult is for him to adjust in a classroom, for him to adjust in a school, because the expectation in a school changes from period to period, from place to place. The rules of the library, are very different from the rules of the playground, right? So if you have the rules written, it will help all children. All children will benefit if they are given reminders that they got to keep their voices low, they got to raise their hands when they are answering a question. So put up the rules in a conspicuous place so that the child can, it's an easy reckoner for him, he can refer to those easily. Review the rules because change according to the needs of the child. Also help the child formulate the rules. Have class formulate the rules. When they formulate the rules themselves, they will understand the whys behind the rules and they're more likely to follow the rules. So this is something that can be done. The other thing that can be done, as you can see in the next slide, is the teacher would want to know about the learner. The child spends a lot of time in the classroom. So it's important for the teacher to know about the learner, to know about the child's strengths, the child's challenges, the child's interests, the child's needs, right? The child's preferences. If the teacher knows about this, she will be able to help the child. So it's important to know about the learner. So if the teacher can look at the assessment report, then that's something that she can do. The other thing is that she can observe the child carefully. What is he doing in the free time? What is he doing when he's in the playground? So she observes the child carefully. She talks to the child. She talks to the parents. She can ask parents to share videos of him doing activities at home, of him doing activities in the community, and know more about the child. The next thing that one can do, as you can see in the next slide, is basically to sensitize other children about differences, right? Now we want to normalize disability in the classroom. It's very, very important because what happens is when a child comes in the classroom who's autistic, he may do some behaviors which other children may not understand. And because they don't understand, they don't do the behaviors themselves, autistic children may be seen in very poor light. So if the child is flapping his hands or is rocking his body back and forth, it may be seen in poor light. So you want to prepare the children, the other children in the classroom, that there is this child who's going to come and he may be different. So talk about similarities, talk about differences. If there is somebody who's wearing specs, talk about it. Talk about physical differences. Somebody is long, somebody is tall, somebody is short, somebody is large, somebody is thin. So talk about differences. And it's like I said, it's very important to normalize disability, that we all come in different shapes and sizes, and some of us may have difficulties in seeing, some of us may have difficulties in walking, some may have difficulties operating a computer. So normalize this talk about disability. There are a lot of books and a lot of programs that are available, so you can use media to help students get sensitized. The next thing that you could do, as you can see in the next slide, is have the child pair up with a peer buddy. So, there are certain children in the class who are willing to help. They can serve as role models for this autistic child. Also, the autistic child can get help for navigating the school environment, right? Where is the cafeteria? Where is the playground? What am I supposed to be doing in the playground? What are the rules of this game? All of this, the peer buddy can help. And the peer buddy can also get benefited because he learns the sense of responsibility. He learns to get sensitized about others' needs. So this is something that the teacher can do. For group activities, she can pair children up. Rather than doing activities individually, pair children up, pair compatible children up so that they can complement each other. So the other thing that one can think of, as you can see in the next slide, is basically keeping instructions simple. Now, the teacher would want to give clear instructions, keep them simple, avoid using sarcasm, avoid using metaphors, use a steady pace of voice so that the child is able to understand. Rather than repeatedly telling the child to do an activity, she could write. She could write it on the board. For example, go to page number 2 and do this. If she writes that on the board, now the autistic child will be able to follow the instructions. The autistic child may have a working memory of the size of a mug compared to the bucket size working memory of a non-autistic child. Now, this is not willful behavior. This is not this is not that the child is doing it to kind of, be rude or be willful, but this is a default setting in his brain. This is how his brain is. He has a different neurology. And because of this, his working memory is very, very short. So write down the instructions rather than repeatedly saying the instruction. Say what you mean. If the teacher says something, she means it. Don't try and scare the child. Don't say we're going to put you in this room or that old man is going to come and he's going to pick you up. Say what you mean. As you can see in the next slide, autistic individuals, the words don't come to autistic individuals naturally. Their natural language is visuals. They can process visual information 10 times faster as a non-autistic individual can process auditory information. So provide visuals wherever possible. Have instructions which are visual. Like you can see in this, there is this list which tells the child that when you go to the computer room, this is what you're going to do. So it tells her the sequence of steps and helps her successfully do the activity in the computer room rather than depending on working memory. And so provide visuals wherever possible. As you can see in the next slide, wherever possible, make learning concrete, provide hands-on learning, provide experiential learning. Let children count with real objects. When you're teaching numbers, count the steps up, count the number of spoons that you will get from the cafeteria. So you're doing a lot of hands-on learning. Do a lot of problem solving. It is not something that will come naturally to an autistic child. You would want to create opportunities where the child is getting to solve problems. So what we are going to go to the playground. What do you think we would want to collect? We're going to go for a field trip. What are the things we'll take with us? So these are some questions that you can ask the child. Also, autistic children are do not generalize. Do not just be able to do a skill that they have learned in one in one classroom to other classrooms. They cannot just copy the skill and do it. So, for example, if they can add numbers, does not mean that they will be able to add money. So, you would want to create opportunities such that the skill is getting generalized. The next slide. Wherever possible, help them work on their vocabulary, help pick up new words, talk about pictures, help them infer. Like in this picture, you could ask, how old is this person's birthday is going to be celebrated? Now, it may not come automatically to a child. For a non-autistic child, if you're reading, he's able to comprehend. For an autistic child, there may be two different things. So you would want to focus on each of these skills. As you can see in the next slide, um, wherever possible, use the child's interests. When you are able to use the child's interest, his learning will be better, right? Also, you can see in the next slide that you see these red portions. This is what happens when the autistic child is learning. There are certain important brain waves called gamma waves, which are not anchored, which you do not see in non-autistic children. Now, when you are using the child's interest, the gamma waves get activated and the child is able to bring together all the information that he has learned. The next slide. Provide the child writing alternatives. It is difficult for the autistic child to write. So provide him a computer if possible, a word processor if possible, so that he is able to write. Give him opportunities for a break. Wherever possible, give him a movement break. In between classes, tell him to wipe the table. So this will give him a legitimate reason to move around in the classroom. Give him to distribute the notebooks, distribute the pencils. Give him these opportunities. It will also boost his self-esteem. Give him choices wherever possible. Would you want to do 5 sums or would you want to do 7 sums? Would you want to sit alone? Would you want to sit with your peers? So give him choices. When you give him choices, he will be in control of his life. I would like to talk about the role of the teacher in the next slide. You can see the role of the teacher is very important. The teacher is not only there to teach content, but is also teaching the child soft skills, social skills, interpersonal skills, teaching about culture, teaching about beliefs, teaching about values. So the role of the teacher is very powerful. And the teacher is not just there to manage the classroom, but is more like a leader who is bringing the change she wants to see in the classroom. So her attitude is very, very her role is like that of a orchestra conductor who is conducting, who is communicating with the whole group, with small groups, with individuals, so that not everyone is doing what everyone should be doing, but there is a reason, or there is individual growth also happening. So I would like to end by showing a favorite quote of mine, that children are not things to be molded, but people to be unfolded. Thank you.
Right. How beautifully you have explained all the concept about this topic, what we are discussing at behavior and daily skill of children with autism in class 1 and 2, and the same way that has been interpreted by Atul Kumar, the sign language interpreter, is in the studio with us. Now, still we have got a few things to be discussed about, although you have done beautifully, Dr. Grover. Thank you so much for this, and you have already been cleaned the image, whatever the pictures you have shown to us, to our viewers as well. But still, if I ask you, how can we help an autistic child deal with big emotions? Emotions could be different as per the different ideology, as per the different average mind ideology as well. So how can that approach will help the child if we talk about the big emotions, if we can help this way as well?
So that's a good question. Basically, when emotions, sometimes children find it difficult to regulate their emotions, and especially the area of the brain which helps in regulating of emotions, they do not develop completely till the age of 18. Right, so all children require help with the regulation of emotions. More for an autistic child, because because he receives a lot of information, right? So now one of the things that the teacher can do, like I had talked about the calming areas, have calming areas in the classroom. It's not a region where you tell the child, okay, now you haven't been behaving properly. You go to the calming area and relax yourself. But it's a place where the child is kind of resetting his mood. So he could do some exercises here. You could have hands stuck where he's doing some push-ups, or there are some things that he is kind of squeezing. You get those squeezy balls which he's squeezing so that he's able to relax himself. This is a zone that is not just used for or by an autistic child. This is a zone that is used by the teacher herself. So she can talk about that my emotions are getting big. I'm getting a little angry. I'm feeling a little jittery. Let me go to this area and calm my emotions down. Right? So the
Right.
teacher can do it. And then other children can also do it. So
Right.
it's not a timeout zone. Yes. You're
Right.
asking, you're saying something?
Yes, yes. As we are running short of time, ma'am, so we need to finish it very quickly. If I putting one more question to you, that how can we sensitize other children in the class, about autism? Then after a couple of questions, I need to ask as well. We have got only 3.5 minutes left now. So on a very quick note.
Yeah, so very quickly to say that you would want to talk about differences, just telling the other children that this child is autistic will not help, right? So you would want to talk about differences, have them do activities where they are measuring the hand span, measuring their heights, measuring their weights. And we are talking about, see, your weight is different than his. His way of thinking is different than yours. So you're talking about differences and talking about similarities. Though we are all different, our needs are the same, right? So that's how one gradually begins this process. And then, as students grow older, using a lot of media to talk about, Pablo and other shows that come on TV or YouTube, they can be shown and differences can be talked about. So it's a process, it's a long process. But you start with talking about differences.
Right. So yes, morally and ethically, you have shown so many things to us. You taught us various things. But if we can understand this thing with quite a few examples, if I ask you, can you give some examples then how to make learning concrete? इसको किस तरीके से ठोस बनाया जा सकता है? कुछ एक उदाहरण के रूप में अगर हम देख पाएं समझ पाएं.
तो जैसे मैं बोल रही थी, अगर आप काउंटिंग कर रहे हैं, अगर बच्चे को बीट्स के साथ खेलना पसंद है, तो आप बीट्स दे सकते हैं बच्चे को कि चलो हम काउंटिंग करेंगे, ठीक है? वैसे ही अगर आप इवेपोरेशन के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, तो आप एक्चुअली कंटेनर लेंगे और उसमें पानी डालेंगे, गैस पे रखेंगे और दिखाएंगे बच्चों की पानी गायब हो गया, वाटर वेपर में बदल गया. तो यू टॉकिंग अबाउट थिंग्स, यू शोइंग थिंग्स टू चिल्ड्रन, मेकिंग एक्सपीरियंशियल. जैसे आपने पैसे को ऐड करना सिखाया है, यू वुड वांट टू टेक हिम टू द मार्केट एंड मेक हिम एक्सचेंज मनी टू बाय समथिंग. सो ही अंडरस्टैंड्स दैट मुझे को देना होता है, इस तरह से पैसे को जोड़ना होता है. सो वो जो सारी लर्निंग मैंने क्लासरूम में की थी, रियल लाइफ सिचुएशन में वो कैसे इस्तेमाल होगी, वो दिखाइए बच्चे को. That will be helpful.
राइट. इनकरेजमेंट की बात आती है, अगर हम किसी को प्रेरित करना चाहें, खासतौर से ये प्रश्न बहुत पेचीदा वहाँ हो जाता है जब आपके पास एक अच्छी खासी आपकी साथियों की जमात हो, आपके फ्रेंड सर्कल बहुत बड़ा है, बट वी आर नॉट एक्चुअली रेडी टू अंडरस्टैंड द होल कॉन्सेप्ट व्हाट इट इज़ ऑल अबाउट. लेकिन उसी धारा प्रवाह में हम बढ़ते चले जाते हैं कि जो भी हम सोच रहे हैं, जो भी हमारे एक समूह की सोच है, वही ठीक है. लेकिन वहाँ पर थोड़ा सा रुकना पड़ेगा अगर इसको भी हम समझ पाएँ कि हाउ टू इनकरेज ऑटिस्टिक चाइल्ड्स इंटरेक्शन विद पीयर्स स्पेशली. बहुत बड़ा मर्ज है ये.
देखिए, ऑटिस्टिक चाइल्ड के लिए कभी कभी टू इंटरैक्ट विथ हिज पीयर्स मे बी डिफिकल्ट. सो यू वुड वांट टू स्टार्ट विथ इंटरैक्टिंग विथ समबडी हु इज लाइक, मैं बोल रही थी, एक पीयर बॉडी के साथ में जो थोड़ा सा सेंसिटिव है, जो थोड़ा सा समझता है बच्चे को, उसके साथ में शुरू करें. एंड मे बी यू वुड वांट टू सेड व्हेन यू सेंसिटाइज द क्लास अबाउट डिफरेंसेस, देन चिल्ड्रन आर मोर विलिंग टू एक्सेप्ट चिल्ड्रन हु आर डिफरेंट. So I think that is where the role of the teacher is very important. If her attitude is positive, if she is open to differences, children will be open to differences.
Right, so we are done with our time, but quickly, if you would like to give any message to our viewers, so what it should be on a quick note.
So I think just deal with autistic children in the way you would deal with other children. Of course, they have some special needs. You would want to provide them that. Give them opportunities to go to a classroom, let them learn. And like I said, sensitize the classroom about differences. That's very, very important.
Right, so thank you so much for watching this incredible session of learning, and I'm extremely grateful to our expert who enlightened us with their immense knowledge and intellect. Thank you so much, Dr. Grover, for being with us.
Thank you.
And also, thank you so much, Mr. Atul Kumar, for being with us in this studio as well. And I hope whosoever watched this program, they will definitely be benefited tremendously by the session. So that's it for today. But tomorrow we will be available once again with the new topic here at the same time and on our same channel. So keep watching PM eVidya channel and be happy and be safe. Namaskar.